I was just looking ahead and cleaning out some of our um, units ahead, or getting this unit set up for this week. And I can't believe it, but I think this is the second to last week of new content. Well, this week, the following week of new content, and then it's a week of sort of getting your portfolio around and kind of wrapping the loose ends up. So crazy. We're almost done with the course. These courses are hard hitting and a lot of work, and you're hanging in there great. I know some of you have apologized for getting things turned in a little later in the week than you intended, because I know I always set that bar high of saying try to get the discussions started and the blog started by Wednesday, but we all know that there's just weeks that that doesn't work, and I understand that. I want to share with you, you don't usually highlight this, but this week I put in a few quotes by Malcolm Gladwell. The spacing is kind of off on the screen, but hopefully you can get the gist of it. I'm really a big Malcolm Gladwell fan, and I think that this quote right here strikes me a lot as we go in this week thinking about authentic assessments and feedback. Authentic assessment and feedback issues probably are, I don't want to say they're my specialty, but they're certainly an area that I've probably focused my own personal study on the very most in the field of assessments, especially that of, well, yeah, I would say that this is probably one of the emphases I've played with. And I also believe that with the tools we have in online and blended learning, we can rethink how we give feedback, and we can be more engaging, more authentic in our own voice giving feedback to students. And many of you have mentioned it also before, that feedback becomes so much more elevated in its importance in an online environment. So I like this quote in light of that. It says, truly successful decision making, and that I think of decision making as a teacher, how many decisions we make in a day, relies on a balance between deliberate and instinctive thinking. I want to be a deliberate teacher, but I also want to teach out of instinct and have sound instincts and be able to trust those as I give feedback. So just things to think about, and you can read those on your own too. I just wanted to highlight them. Same system as usual. We're going to have a discussion board, blog, do the feedback or replies for both of those, and then do the activity. Let me just walk through these just so there's clarity on what we're doing for each activity, and kind of talk through some thoughts on authentic assessment and feedback. The first idea here is this idea of authentic assessment, and it's sort of like one of those education buzzwords. I think what we're striving for really here is for you to kind of think through what authentic means to you out of your context, and to read through and listen to what others are describing as authentic. A lot of times, like if you would just do a plain old Google search on authentic, a lot of project-based learning comes up, and I think that is a type of authentic assessment. Here's my thing. We would love to label cans of food or produce items as organic, right? But you've also read a lot of controversy over that organic labeling and what really makes something organic and what makes it not. Authentic does the same thing for me. Authentic is one of those words that you can say, oh, this is an authentic assessment, but you really have to kind of do a litmus test for you personally as a teacher. What is authentic? And why? Why are we even worrying about authentic assessment? The pedagogy behind it, or the philosophy, obviously, is that students are more engaged and have a stronger sense of purpose with authentic assessment. And then I guess that leaves us to translate. So, how do I test Shakespeare authentically? How do I test parabolas authentically? How do I test flexibility, for you gym teacher out there, authentically? And some of our disciplines are much easier to be authentic with because we see direct correlation, but we've all done that to our teachers and said, well, when will I ever need to know this beyond this class, right? So I don't know, wrestle with that a little bit. Don't just say, oh yeah, authentic assessment, here we go. But just kind of tear around on this one in your mind a bit. There's a video, some resources here to also get us going on authenticity in assessment. Okay, returning to the learning units for after our discussion board, then we have, there's probably an easier way to navigate that, sorry. I don't always choose the shortest route ever, even when I'm driving a car. Okay, if we drop down to the blog, I think part and parcel to this idea of authentic assessment, our objective is to get our students to really think, to really engage with content, to really produce something that's meaningful in terms of assessment, something that's accessible and meaningful both. And what we're going to look at here is how to develop our structures for our assessments, our authentic assessments, that set students up for a higher quality. I think we probably all, if you've taught for any years at all in any context, you've probably had those experiences where you set an assignment up, and I have even in this class, you set an assignment up and you have an idea of how you want students to answer, but your assignment rubric and your assignment explanation don't connect with the students in the way that you thought they'd be interpreted. And we're going to just talk about how we can get students' work that's authentic to also be measurable, and how we can hopefully raise the bar and the expectation of what we want that to look like without over defining it, so that we can assess it and see if students' growth is, so we have something to measure, right? I think that's that catch-22. Okay, so I got this great hands-on project that I'm going to have them do in a group and collaborate, and wait a minute, how am I going to grade this, right? How am I going to assess it if this is an assessment? And so we want this critical thinking piece in place, and we also want some sort of structure so that we can assess their learning. Oh, I didn't really explain the assignment. I just talked about the topic. My bad. So you're going to look at an authentic assessment. You're going to choose one that you think might work well. You can make up your own too. You can explain the changes you'd have to make for online or blended learning. And this is supposed to link to the original assessment or explanation. Again, if you created your own, or if you found one in a different resource, that doesn't bother me. And then what changes you'd make. And then this Kathy Schrock's website is awesome. That SAMR model that I mentioned in one of my emails a couple weeks ago, she has some things on that. This is a great support piece for creating the rubric that this requires, and then you'll post the rubric that you've created for peer and instructor feedback. So this would be, we're talking about a piece that allows students to assess each other, and something that you would use to assess the student. It could also be something the students would use to assess themselves. I'm kind of jumping ahead to the next piece, and that is the idea of the power of feedback. And basically, I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with rubrics. I feel chained by them often. I would rather just write to students, but I found combining my desire to write with my rubric is sometimes helpful. Sometimes I just use it, honestly, more as a prop. It's there for students to know what I'm going through as I assess their work. And other times I actually highlight pieces of the rubric and report back to them using that rubric. Sorry, I'm trying to find the assessment piece here. My phone's ringing. I'll let you go ahead and look at the wiki. I think that for the wiki this week, it's missing a link perhaps, so that's something I might need to fix before you get in there. But we're going to obviously build then into our assessment portfolio with that activity, and it's going to have to do with rubrics and feedback. I thought it was there, it wasn't. If you have questions on it, you can shoot me a question if the instructions aren't clear. That's all I have for you. I think just thinking this week about authenticity in our assessments, how we're going to evaluate them, and then what our feedback communicates to students, and Also, even think about when that feedback and that evaluation should come. Should it come in the middle of a project? Should it come at the end? Placement can be very key. Even having a pre-conference with students before they start a project. Things are just kind of rattling around in my brain right now. But think about that this week as you progress through this learning unit. Have a great week and let me know if you need anything.